views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
And hello, everyone, and welcome to Open, the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I'm your host, Daren, Jaime, and today we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough, as well as across New York City. Coming up on today's show, we go front and center talking to the organization BronxWorks, as they are doing work currently tackling the homeless crisis in the community. We'll bring you some details. Afterwards, we'll learn how one organization is breaking cycles of poverty in New York City public housing. And then we'll sit with the representative of the Animal Care Center of New York. They're going to discuss the importance of adopting a pet. And then also we'll discuss an important milestone for medical students who are transitioning from graduate student to physician. We'll give you more details a little later on in the show. And then we'll talk about the recent Apple event and what to expect from Apple throughout the upcoming year. Well, stay tuned because all this and much more is heading your way. Right now, we're officially open. And hello, everyone, and welcome to Open, the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I am your host, Daren Jaime. Today, we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough, yes, and in New York City. We bring the show straight to you. We also want to welcome our viewers who are watching on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. It's Open is being broadcast live simultaneously on our MNN channel. We also invite you to stay connected to us on all of our social media platforms at BronxNet TV. And don't forget our website, BronxNet.org, where you can find out more about all our station has to offer. Well, a lot has certainly been going on through the course of the past week, and we'll take you through some of those things with our Bronx Updates. We start off with community news. South Bronx Unite with other leaders gathered to demand the closure of several state-run peaker plants emitting harmful toxins into the air. Our BronxNet reporter, Arlene Makoko, was there. She brings us the story right now.
They were meant to be temporary installations that would operate 1 to 2 hours each day here at 132nd Street and Locust Avenue.
Shut it down! Shut it down!
Yet after 2 decades in the Port Morris section, leaders here from South Bronx Unite and other groups say they run all day, and now they want them removed as they place the health and safety of nearby residents at risk.
We have the highest asthma rates in the country, 8 times higher than any other place in the country. Our children are suffering. We know that exposure to air pollution also contributes to a whole host of health issues.
While a timeline is in place for its removal, Executive Director of South Bronx Unite, Arif Ullah, says he'd like to see the state-run plant managed by the New York Power Authority moved up.
Right now, there are projections that renewable energy will become available, enough to replace 15 of New York City's 16 peak power plants by 2026. Yet NYPA is refusing to commit to closing these until 2035. Our community cannot wait an additional 9 years.
Years that will only work to further place the health and safety of this community at risk, shared New York State Assembly member Amanda Septimo, who agrees with Ullah.
We know that the state is investing in major ways in renewable energy, and that's great, but we want to make sure that communities like the South Bronx are at the front of the line to reap those benefits, and that starts with closing peaker plants.
Peaker power plants, occasionally called peakers, are meant to run only for a few hours a day when there is a high energy demand. Climate activists say that this could happen safely with wind and solar energy that, when combined, amount to the same energy currently generated from these peakers.
We're here today to talk about this plant needing to be shut down like the other two that are here on our peninsula.
That's co-founder of South Bronx Unite, Michael Johnson, who talked about the historic nature of air pollution in this community that sees more than its fair share.
For years, for whatever reason, the South Bronx was just viewed as an easy place to put some of the facilities that are more controversial because people know that they would cause harm. And that's how we've seen this area get to the state that it's gotten to, with having the worst air quality in the nation, right? Highest asthma rates in the nation. Peaker plants are one example of those facilities, but we also have waste transfer stations, waste management stations. We've got highways galore, and I think it's just decades of neglect. But community has been fighting back that entire time, and now we're finally reaching a point where I think we have representation that is demanding that something be done about these issues.
So State Assemblymember Septimo has reached out to the governor's office and to the New York Power Authority. She is waiting to hear back. For BronxNet, this is Arlene Makoko.
And thank you, Arlene. We will continue to follow this story and its new developments. We encourage you to stay connected to us here at BronxNet's Open. And we're going to take a quick break. We've got more show coming up right after this. And welcome back. Since 1972, BronxWorks has continued to improve individuals' lives and families, helping them in their economic and social well-being, as they're guided by the belief that people must be treated with dignity as well as respect. Now, regardless of their present situation or even their past experiences. And joining us now to talk a little bit about the homeless crisis and the work that's going on, we're pleased to have the program director of the homeless outreach team at BronxWorks, Juan Rivera. And Juan, thank you for joining us. And I'll begin by asking the question about the homeless crisis as we are now navigating ourselves further out of this COVID pandemic, particularly in New York City. What can you tell us about how you're viewing homelessness in New York City?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Daren. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be here. As far as, the homeless crisis, coming out of COVID, we're sort of thankful for that, obviously, because it did definitely impact our population in different ways. Fortunately, it really didn't impact the population in terms of people passing away. We really had, sort of that was like minimal impact for us, which was fortunate, thankfully, but, it did impact folks in terms of, how we provided the services and places they could go and, different situations that came up. But, the homeless crisis, I hesitate, I guess, to call it a crisis. I feel like homelessness has been an issue for obviously a long time. I think that it, at different times, it has a lot of eyes on it for different reasons. I think that, the population on the street, from what we've seen, has decreased a bit. And we've worked to do that in different ways. We have a lot of different options now in terms of transitional living that we can offer people. There are a lot more safe haven beds available to individuals who are street homeless. And these are sort of lower threshold facilities that, are more attractive to people who may be shelter resistant and who haven't gone to who don't want to go to the more traditional sort of city shelters. We also have, other beds that have opened up. Stabilization beds is what they're called. These are also, again, low threshold beds that are very, accessible. They're single rooms. There's services on site. So, a lot of different options have been made available that have helped us as an outreach team and the other providers to really kind of bring a lot of folks inside that are street homeless. And I think, something I point out to a lot of folks too is, you might see someone on the street panhandling, or, they might look like they're out there sleeping on the street. And, many times, you'd be surprised folks are either permanently housed, or they have a transitional bed, or they're working with a team. So sometimes, perception is sort of, the public sees it, one way, and they may not necessarily know, the behind the scenes stuff that's going on with the teams and how we're working with individuals. But, it's always a challenge. It's ongoing, and we're always sort of figuring out, new ways and creative ways to tackle the problem and tackle the issue.
When we talk about your outreach team, they are front and center, boots on the ground across the city, dealing with the issue of the homeless. Talk to us about it, because you're 24/7 on call and have the ability to meet needs. So when the outreach team is out there, walk us through what that looks like for those who are being dispatched out to service the community.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we are a 24-hour team, as you mentioned, 7 days a week. We pride ourselves in sort of being like the mailman. We're always out there, no matter what the weather is, no matter what the conditions are. we strive to deliver the services, and we have teams out, on morning, day, evenings, overnight. And our goal is really, we just cover the Bronx, so we really try to split up the borough in half, and we kind of concentrate. We have one team, sort of on the east side of the Bronx, and one team on the west side of the Bronx. And we kind of go north and south, and we try to hit areas where we know folks congregate, and then we try to also look for new locations or people that might be, new in a particular area. You look for different things. You look for, sometimes you might see, sort of holes in fences, or you might see tents, or you might see something, that kind of gives you a clue that there might be activity somewhere. And we go into all public spaces, whether it's, under a highway somewhere or off the side of the road. So it's definitely work that, is challenging, and we make sure to be safe in how we do it. But, what we strive to do is not just like, it's not about, I often say it's not like this fast food service kind of job, in the sense that we don't just walk up to someone and say, hey, do you want to come inside? And then they just jump in the car and we go. We wish it would be that easy. But it's really about building rapport and sort of getting to know the folks that are on the street, many of whom have had, bad experiences or have had traumatic events happen to them in their lives. They have mental illness, they have substance use disorders. And you have to build a lot of trust in order to get that person to decide to come inside and accept services. So really what our outreach team does as the frontline team is they go out there and they really try to build those relationships. And then once we can get that person to, feel more comfortable with us, then we can sort of take it to the next level and work on case management, maybe get them to take a bed somewhere. And then we can start to really work on the issues that are going on, and potentially get them into permanent housing.
And so, as the work continues, talk to us about where we're going now. I know that there's a lot of concern, particularly for New Yorkers with the eviction moratorium, of possibly even seeing more people ending up on the street. But we also know, as a result of that, a lot of people have engaged in substance abuse and mental health that are, that are triggers behind this COVID pandemic. So talk to us about how you're dealing with the issue of mental health, substance abuse, and tackling that, because that's a great, well, I don't want to say great, but that's a part of what goes on with a lot of those who are in the homeless community.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, one of the biggest things that we can offer, besides just outreach and access to beds and those kind of services, we also do have a psychiatrist that works with us, and, actually a couple of psychiatrists who can go out with us into the field and conduct evaluations and provide treatment. And we also have a medical director that goes out with us, to also provide sort of that street medicine, aspect to our team, where we can, a lot of the individuals we serve, many times they're undiagnosed, whether it's with mental health issues or, they haven't seen a doctor in years. And so part of our approach is to try to, get someone out to them. If the issue is that they don't want to come to, with us, then we want to bring the service to them to really try to get that goal accomplished, because, there's a lot of mental health issues. And I think specifically with those that are severely mentally ill, who could be a danger to themselves or to others, we want to make sure that we're assessing those folks properly, and that we're trying to provide, the right course of action, whether that means, potentially hospitalizing someone, or, some other method to try to address what's going on with them. Obviously there's been some cases in the news, and we've seen, some terrible things happen with folks who are severely mentally ill. And, our jobs is to try to really assess those folks and make sure that they're safe. But I think a lot of what also goes on is on the hospital end, where that's where we find some difficulty. And I think with folks with mental illness, I think if the system worked better, I think that we would have more success. In terms of substance abuse, I mean, we offer medication assisted treatment for those who are using opioids. That's something that we can offer someone. It's a treatment that we can quickly provide someone with. We can start them on this medication, on Suboxone, and that will that entices a lot of folks as well to sort of come inside. We kind of offer it as a package deal. It's like, hey, we can get you on this medication to help you with your substance use disorder, and we can also offer you a room, and kind of combine those things. And it's helped out in a lot of cases to convince folks to come inside and to try to get sober, or at least reduce the harm that they're causing themselves.
Yeah. Well, Juan, we have to leave it there, but I want to thank you so much for sharing a little with us about the work that BronxWorks is doing ongoing, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right there on the streets of New York, trying to help our New York City homeless to a better way of life. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing, Juan, and thank your team over there at BronxWorks.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and we appreciate you highlighting the work.
All righty. Well, I want to let our viewers know if you want more information about this, you can go to BronxWorks.org and you find out about the homeless unit as well as many of the other services that they provide. We do have more show. We encourage you to don't go anywhere. Open is continuing right after this. And welcome back to the show. Urban Upbound provides low-income New Yorkers the tools and resources needed to achieve economic mobility and self-sufficiency. Their integrated programs work in collaboration to effectively help individuals achieve economic prosperity. Joining me now to share a little bit more is the CEO and founder of Urban Upbound, Bishop Mitchell Taylor. And Bishop Taylor, good to have you. And when we talk about the work that you're doing, you really want to be able to deal with the issue of poverty. And I know part of what you talk about and what you deal with is really dealing with the issue of reducing poverty when it comes to those who are living in public housing.
Yeah, thank you, Daren, so much. When you think about poverty breaking initiatives and things that are being done to break cycles of poverty, you have to think about this integrated, comprehensive approach. For us at Urban Upbound, business development, career services, training and placement, youth development, academic and vocation, one-on-one financial counseling for poor people that was innovated by us here in New York City, and then free tax preparation, and then we own our own bank. But the issue is not having these individual silos. It's being able to comprehensively integrate them on campuses. And at the very least, for New Yorkers, it's really creating an ecosystem that emanates not from the outside in, but from the inside out, and not from the top down, but from the bottom up. And that means organizing all the organizations that exist in nonprofit, and get nonprofit organizations and other resident leaders and religious leaders and business leaders together and begin to work on poverty breaking initiatives comprehensively. It's important that we do it together.
Yeah. And when we talk about one of the greatest challenges that are facing low-income people and people, of course, across New York City is the need for affordable housing and housing services. I know your organization is on the front lines of dealing with helping people with housing services. Unpack for us a little bit the work that you're doing there with housing services.
Yeah, well, a lot of people, because, our core services are directed at residents that live in public housing neighborhoods. As you know, the core structure of our organization is built on a model called Jobs Plus that was developed by MDRC. And it's a full saturation workforce development model that really embraces this neighbor to neighbor community collaborative that makes sure that everyone that wants to work, that can work, is given the opportunity, and everyone is talking about it together and using that in every silo and every frame of what we're doing, whether it be education, workforce development, business development, and things of that nature. So to solve that, when people talk about the housing issue, to solve the housing issue, we have to have more housing stock. But one of the things that we empower folks that live in public housing to do is to consider home ownership, because one of the fastest ways to the middle class, or what some may call the lower middle class, is through home ownership, and helping people from the conception of the American dream to the realization of the American dream, and taking them through that process step by step with a financial counselor. And, a lot of people don't realize there are a lot of resources for first-time home buyers. And so to solve on the homeless and the home ownership and just the population of people looking for a stable place to live is a core part of our programming. And because, look, if you don't have a stable place to live, how do our children have a stable place to learn? Right. So all of these things contribute to those negatives that perpetuate poverty. So creating stability really is the beginning of chipping away at those cycles of poverty.
And you're looking at doing that by the work being entrenched in NYCHA and some other low-income communities. Myself grew up in NYCHA. I'm a NYCHA baby who came out of NYCHA, but I know that when you're living there, sometimes those access to resources and services, at least in my day growing up, weren't so readily available. But it seems as though that you've got a good job in terms of bridging that gap, in terms of helping people with job readiness and even counseling to get them to that place.
Yeah, it's Daren, you're so right. You're so right. Because when we started building Urban Upbound 20 years ago, public housing wasn't, and I hate to use this term, but in vogue. No one was talking about public housing. No one cared about us. I grew up in Queensbridge, and so I guess I'm a NYCHA baby too. And I didn't realize that my dad's church, which was right across the street from Queensbridge, was right across the street from the largest public housing development in the country. I didn't know that we were, in the mecca of public housing right here in Long Island City. And I think that, my dad used to say, Long Island City is, 7 minutes from the world. So when you think about Queensbridge, anywhere I go around the world, when they say, where are you from? I said, I'm from Queensbridge. They may not know Long Island City. They may not know Forest Hill, but they know Queensbridge because they know Nas, they know Meta World Peace. But my point is, 20 years ago, we didn't have the services that we have now. We didn't have workforce entrenched and embodied as a place-based initiative in public housing. We didn't double down on professional financial counseling for people in public housing 20 years ago. So this model that we began to build out 20 years ago, we wanted to do it because we didn't see it being done in other neighborhoods. And we wanted to create a model so that this kind of capacity and composition of services would be in public housing neighborhoods across the city. I'm proud to say that almost 20 years later, that we have 46 jobs plus sites operating in the NYCHA developments in the 5 boroughs of New York City. Now, that's a drop in the bucket, some might say, in comparison to the 343 conventional developments that we have, and a lot of those are clustered, but it's a lot more than we had when I started.
Yeah. And when we talk about starting, getting a fresh start is important for many people. When you're in sometimes NYCHA houses, low income housing, that's the goal sometimes. People would like to see a fresh start, an opportunity for a better career, an opportunity for home advancement, to own a home, to even live in a better apartment, if you will. And for many times you look at people, they feel as though that dream is unattainable. But the services that you provide seems as though to be a great bridge to being able to do that. So from your perspective, give me a little bit about the impact that you feel that you've been able to make in the lives of these people who've taken advantage of the services.
Yeah, I mean, look, when we started doing tax preparation 18 years ago, we did 81 returns, got $250,000 back, half of which was EITC qualified. Today, 18 years later, we're $300 million in cumulative returns that we've gotten back to residents that live in public housing neighborhoods and surrounding neighborhoods around the city. The impact is, I want to celebrate the impact, but I don't really want to celebrate the impact because we can't make the impact that we really could make if we don't have the full cooperation of the city and the state as it relates to, don't say you're giving me money as a nonprofit practitioner to provide for my constituents and then make me wait 15 to 16 months to get that money. So in order to actually execute on what the city or the state promises us, we have to give the city or state a free interest-free loan that we have to pay interest on to get, even if we get a line of credit to do it. So you're giving us money, but then you're shackling our hands because the system is not, designed for a smooth, operational value to constituents on the ground. So I think that along with housing stock, let's not erase the fact that we're living in New York, the state that was so great they had to name it twice. But we're also living in the highest, it costs more to live in New York than any other place in the country. And I think that says a lot about how poor people or people that have less than others are able to survive in New York City. So we need housing stock. We need people to seriously think about how do we create more housing stock? How do we empower nonprofits like Urban Upbound to have the opportunity to participate in urban development and housing development, and people that know what people want and know how to theoretically do it? Why aren't we empowered to do it?
Yeah. Well, Bishop Till, we'll have to leave it there. He's the CEO and founder of Urban Upbound. We're glad to have him with us here on the show. Bishop Taylor, glad to have you.
Thank you so much, man. Anytime.
All right. Well, we want to let you know if you want more information, don't hesitate to visit the website at urbanupbound.org and follow them on social media at Urban Upbound NY. We are taking a quick break. We do have more show. Don't go anywhere because Open continues coming up right after this. And welcome back. Animal Care Centers NYC is the only open admissions animal shelter in New York City and takes on an average of 30,000 animals every year. Now, individuals from all over New York City come to the centers for reasons as diverse as reclaiming lost pets, adopting new furry family members, and getting resources to help them keep their pets in their homes. Well, joining us now and sharing more details, we are pleased to have the Director of Marketing and Communications at Animal Care Centers of NYC, Katy Hansen. And Katy, good to have you with us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and it's a pleasure to have this conversation to talk a little bit about also about adopting, because many times not only are people into owning animals by just straight purchasing, a lot of people are really now and more engaging in the adoption of animals. And I know that's a work that's near and dear to your heart.
Yes, and we love the term adopt, don't shop. So yeah, we have plenty of animals of all different kinds, from dogs, cats, kittens, bunnies, guinea pigs. We have it.
Yeah. So when you talk about adopt, don't shop, that's a pretty powerful statement in itself. But give me, why is it important for people to consider adopting rather than shopping?
Well, all across the country, and of course, including New York City, we have pet overpopulation problems. And shelters are getting fuller and fuller with animals that have been surrendered by their owners or they've been abandoned, and they need homes. And there's so many of them. There's really no need to shop because we have such a wide array. I mean, if you figure there's 9 million people living in New York City, if they are surrendering their animals or somehow leaving the animals behind, we have a wide array from small to large. There's really no reason to shop. And when you adopt, it's also much cheaper, by the way, to adopt usually. All of our pets are vaccinated, they're microchipped, they're already spayed or neutered, they're really ready to go. So, and it's a benefit to the animals as well. I mean, they love being adopted, obviously. And so you are really saving a life when you're adopting.
Yeah. And when we talk about adopting, it's a process. And so for somebody who says, listen, this kind of intrigues me, what does that process entail if one wanted to adopt?
That's a good question. And it's important that people know about the process. So I'm glad you asked that. We do something called open adoptions, which is, maybe in the olden days, people had to fill out like a 20-page application. But we do open adoptions, which is basically like a one-page application. And then we have conversation-based conversations about what your lifestyle is, what you're looking for. Do you have kids? Do you have access to a park? So we do, it's more matchmaking, really. And that is how we get people to pick out the animals that are right for them. So you come in, we have this conversation, and then we show you around all the different animals. Our adoption counselors know all of the animals that we have and a little bit about each one. So you meet the animal, you interact with the animal, and then you say, you know what, I'm ready. And then you can do the adoption right there on site. And you go home. We have a whole package we give people with litter if you have a cat, with food, with everything. They've got the dog license, so you're ready to go. It's really
Talk to me about, yeah, it sounds fairly easy, and I think somebody out there might be saying, I'll take part. And as I look at the work that you're doing right now, I said in the intro about 30,000 animals you take on every year. Give me a little bit about how it's been in COVID, through COVID. Have you seen more and more people say, listen, I have to surrender my animals because it's just becoming hard. We know a lot of people are dealing with food insecurity. A lot of people dealing with unemployment and underemployment. Are we finding a trend of more and more people surrendering their animals during this time?
Yeah, it's actually really, it's sad. What happened like right when the pandemic started, I'd say back in March of 2020, there was a rush for everyone to adopt because everyone's like, well, I'm going to be inside, I want to adopt, this is a good time. And then now as the pandemic has progressed and it's in a different stage, there are a lot of people that are surrendering their pets now, not the ones that they adopted during the pandemic, but these are families that are going through really hard times. They've lost a job, they've lost their housing. Most of the time when we get dogs, for instance, coming in, it's because they've lost housing or they're moving in with friends or family that don't allow dogs. So it's the surrenders are now slowly creeping back up. So last year we went down to like 14,000 animals coming in. So it was great for us. People weren't going outside, so they weren't finding stray animals and bringing them in and so forth. But now we are seeing an increase, and we're actually seeing a decrease in adoptions, which is a really bad combination to have right now.
How long does it take before a pet becomes lost before they become up for adoption?
Well, there is a stray hold period for any animal that comes in without any identification, and that is 3 days. So if a dog comes in and there's no identification, their picture and all their information goes up on our website, so that people can locate them if they're checking our website. And then after the 3 days are up, then they are examined medically and behaviorally and placed up for adoption or for a rescue partner. But the good news is if you have a microchip or if you have any identification, then the stray hold is 10 days. So we really recommend that people have microchips and some type of license or collar.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of questions about the microchip and wondering whether or not that would be a good way to go for their animal. The benefits, of course, of having a microchip is being able to locate your animal. But talk about that conversation, because there are a lot of pet owners right there who are somewhat skeptical of using that microchip.
Yeah, I mean, microchip, the great thing about the microchip is it's always there. It's not going to come off like a collar would come off. And actually, people sometimes don't even think, well, I have a cat. Why do I need a microchip? But you just never know when your cat is going to escape. And if it's an indoor cat, you know, it's probably not likely to have a collar. The other benefit of a microchip is that any type of veterinary facility, hospital, or other shelters can scan. We all have these universal scanners, and even our field drivers have universal scanners. So you put the little machine up to the neck, because that's where the microchip is, and it sends out all the information. So sometimes we can even return an animal before they've even come to the shelter.
Wow, amazing. So if
And it
people want
doesn't hurt them.
Oh, that's the other question, because I think there's a question about how much pain would that animal feel being chipped.
So the microchip itself is about the size of a small grain of rice. It goes in like 2 seconds, and then they never feel it.
Pretty interesting. So for somebody who wants to think about and considers about adoption, how do they go about doing that?
Well, the first thing I always tell people is go to our website. That's where you're going to find all the animals that we have available for adoption, the ones that are in foster, the ones that are in Manhattan or Brooklyn or Staten Island, and then take a look at those animals. And if you see one that you like, there's a little button that you press and it says, start the conversation, adopt me. And it's really easy from there. The directions are there every step of the way. Or if people are just interested in adopting, they can always just come to the shelter.
Katy Hansen, I want to thank you so much for being with us, sharing with us a little bit about pets and the adoption process. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
We want our viewers to know, if you want more information, don't hesitate to visit the website at nycacc.org, or of course, visit them on the social media platform at nycacc. All right, well, we do have more show coming up. Don't go anywhere, because Open continues coming up in a few.
We built a media network for you.
BronxNet TV.
Come learn in your new state-of-the-art studios at Lehman College.
At Mercy College.
And coming soon to the South Bronx in the Hub.
Inspire with your stories, culture, history.
Your Bronx on BronxNet.
Engage with us.
Connect with us at your channels and at bronxnet.tv.
Learn, engage, inspire. BronxNet TV.
From the Bronx
to the world.
BronxNet.
Welcome back. Well, in the health and medical community, Match Day is a rite of passage and an important milestone, signifying the transition from medical student to physician. And on March 18th, graduating students who spent the last 2 years of medical school in hospital wards during the pandemic opened their envelopes to learn what medical specialty they will enter in and where they'll live for the next 3 to 5 years. And joining us now to tell us more details, we've got medical school graduates from the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, and we've got April Sosa, and we've got Emily Bruder, and Daniel Baghdasarian. And thank you so much for being with us. I will start off with ladies first, and I'll start off, I guess, first of all, with April. And April, talk to us. You've got a match, and where are you going, and what are you going to be doing?
Well, I'll be staying at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. I matched at Montefiore Social Peds. and I'm very excited. This was my very first choice. Social pediatrics is basically this is just much like any categorical pediatrics program. However, it specializes in the care of patients who are undergoing health disparities and addressing those health disparities in the community. So I'm very excited.
Congratulations. All right. And we got Emily. And Emily, I know it was a time of excitement for you. Where did you match?
I also matched at Albert Einstein College of Medicine. I will be staying at Montefiore. I'll do a couple of years of a pediatrics residency also with April, and then I'll go on to complete a child neurology residency.
Yeah. Daniel, and for yourself?
I think I'm following a trend. So I'll also be staying here at Montefiore, and I'll be specializing in obstetrics and gynecology.
Well, I want to thank all of you for being with us and sharing. I mean, congratulations. I know it's been a long time coming. A lot of, thoughts and, worries about what's going to happen next. But talk to us about wanting to be local, because I know for all of you, you wanted to have some local roots. But why did you want to stay at the Bronx and in Montefiore?
So I grew up in Washington Heights, right by the New York Public Library that's there. And I really wanted to stay because I had gone away for undergrad. And so after experiencing that, I'm really missing my family and wanting to give back to the community in which I grew up in. And I have family throughout the greater New York metropolitan area. So in the Bronx, in Queens, in Westchester, in Jersey. And so it was really important for me to stay. But in addition to that, I also had really great mentors here. I have great friends here and that are both mentors and peers that I learned so much from. And so that was those were my primary motivations to stay, and just wanting to serve the community that I've invested so much in as a medical student.
All right. Emily, a hard decision to make to stay local?
Very easy decision. University, which is sort of why I wanted to stick around at Einstein for medical school. And then being at Einstein, like April said, just meeting everybody and having really great teachers made it an easy decision. Also, my mom's family is from the Bronx. She grew up on Castle Hill, and that's still where my family lives now. So it was just nice to be able to know that community personally, and just be able to work at the hospital that my grandparents get their healthcare at.
Yeah. Daniel, was it a big wait for you?
Yeah, so I'm actually from Los Angeles originally, so I'm definitely away from home, but I really fell in love with the Bronx community as a medical student, and just the amazing mentorship and services provided by Montefiore. I know I can make a really big difference here, and I just knew that this is the right place for me.
Yeah. And so congratulations and welcome. 3,000 miles away, making the Bronx your home. But listen, LA, Bronx, you're right at home. So you'll fit in. You'll fit in real good. Listen, I want to talk to you about patients, because obviously you'll now be dealing with patients in a different kind of capacity, right? And so there comes this level of expectation for yourselves and what you want to bring to your patients. And so I'll start off with Daniel this time. As you have your experience with your patients now as a physician, what are your hopes?
Right. So, OB-GYN, I think historically is a very political field, whether socially, religiously, or politically. I think a big part of that is really allyship and empowerment of our patients and their bodies. Our healthcare system can be rather difficult to navigate through. So I think as a resident, I'm hoping to play a key part in that and helping my patients really figure out what's going on and how to heal and grow and be the best they can.
Yeah. Emily, I want to talk to you a little bit about your education at Einstein, because you spent 2 years before getting to this place of having a match. What was that experience like leading up to today?
It was very nerve-wracking leading up to match day. Never quite felt anything like that because there's just so much uncertainty. So it was just a lot of distracting myself and waiting for that email to come in.
And finally, that email did come in, and I know the same thing happened for April. The email comes in, you open it. How much of a deep breath do you take before you actually open it? Talk to me about that moment.
Yeah, so many of us participated in Match Day, where we got to actually open up our envelopes at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. And my whole family was surrounding me. Everyone got to visit at the same time, and many of the students got to open the envelopes at the same time. So I was the first person online to pick up my envelope. I was so excited. And I run over to my family and I have the envelope and everyone's saying, "Open it, April, open it." And my mom said, "Wait, let me take a picture." So everyone was really excited. And I was very relieved to hear that I got my first choice. The moment where I opened it, it was like, finally, I get to, it was a culmination of everything that we had been waiting for. Emily was talking about the anticipation prior to match day, and we basically had this 2-week waiting period where after we had submitted our rank list, which is the list of preferences that we have for potential residency programs that we're interested in, it was that culmination of waiting and the excitement and the stress, and it was just a really fantastic day.
Yeah, yeah. And so obviously as physicians, now being officially physicians, it's got to be a great feeling for each of you. I'll go real quickly because we only have a couple of minutes left, but I do want to, I'll start off again with Daniel, and I'll say to you, this feeling of now being a physician.
Right, so it's incredibly humbling. It's a great honor. I'm the first person in my family to go to medical school, so it's definitely exciting trying to lead that way. I'm extremely grateful for my experiences here.
Good, good. Emily?
Pretty much similar to Daniel. I'm also the first person in my family to go to medical school. So it's sort of a lot of excitement across the board for lots of my family members, and just really excited to be involved in with patients now in this new way.
All right, April.
I'm just so excited, and I feel really privileged and honored to be able to take care of our patients in the Bronx. Part of what my drive and motivation for staying here is addressing adverse childhood experiences and getting and helping patients become more health literate and engage in the community, become civically involved. A lot of what we do in the Bronx here is community-based organizations and nonprofits to help our patients who encounter a lot of obstacles in their care. And so I really feel that all of us here today and my fantastic colleagues that are with me are really invested in the community and trying to address these obstacles that our patients face.
Are you the first in your family?
I am the first in my family, yes.
All right. So when anybody asks, is there a doctor in the house? We've got a doctor in the house. Thank you all. All right. Well, I want to congratulate you all, Daniel, April, Emily, so much on going with the match. And now you'll be off and working as physicians. And we want to say congratulations to you all. Thank you for being with us here on Open.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
all righty.
so much.
Yes. Well, we want to let you know that if you want more information about them and you want more information about the master process, anything about that, we encourage you, go to the website at einsteinmed.edu and you can find out a whole lot more there. We encourage you, don't go anywhere. We do have more show coming up. Open continues right after this. And welcome back to the show. Apple is off to making some noise. Recently, they had a couple of quiet months, but they just introduced some of their new products. And the question is, what can we expect Apple to release in 2022? And most of all, when can we expect them to arrive, given the fact that we're having a chip shortage? Join us now, and we're pleased to have more details coming to us from the editor-in-chief of Laptop Magazine, Sherri L. Smith. And Sherri, good to have you. And I got to start off with this. I mean, first of all, Apple held its event a little while ago. A lot of people had some anticipation. From your perspective, did it meet all the hype?
I mean, it never meets all the hype because Apple likes to dole out everything on a drip drop basis. So I personally was expecting to see the new MacBook 13 and the new MacBook Air and the highly rumored, highly anticipated M2 chip series. That did not happen, and Apple left off with this event with a cryptic, as for MacBook Pro and Air, and that's a tale for another time. So we will be waiting for that, just like we will be waiting for the iPhone 14 and the Pro and the Pro Max, or whatever the naming convention is going to be for the phones this year.
So we did see some new iPhones being released. Talk to us about that, because I understand for the consumer that really can't spend the money on the big iPhone, this was a help for them.
So the iPhone SE is really big with folks who, you're right, don't have $1,000 in or over to spend on a bigger iPhone. Not only, it's also for people that prefer a smaller iPhone. I personally love a big phone, but there are people that they're like, it's too big. I don't want to use two hands to type. So the SE is like a snack size phone, fits right in the palm of your hand. It's costs $499. And what the big deal about this is that it's got, even though cosmetically it really hasn't gotten that many changes, it's gotten a huge power bump, because it has the A15 bionic chip that we saw in the previous gen iPhones. So it's on a par with those, and it's like one of the most powerful little phones that you can get on the market right now.
Yeah. One of the things I heard immediately was one of my colleagues said to me, Daren, when it comes to the 27-inch iMac, it's gone. And I said, really? I said, okay. And what happened? So we understand that the 27-inch iMac is being discontinued. What are Apple's plans to get?
They haven't said yet. And again, there are numerous Apple events throughout the year. We still have to have one for the MacBooks. We still have WWDC, which is Apple's developer conference. So there's going to be news there. Typically, you see news about software. So iOS might get a update, or a new one, or a new Mac OS, or a new iPad OS. But every now and then they have hardware there, so there's an off chance that you might see an iMac announcement there. Or we're still waiting for new generations of the AirPods, the AirPods Pro, and the AirPods Max. So there's a lot there's a lot of conjecture on what Apple is going to bring, but you never really know. As far as the iMac, I haven't seen any conjecture about if we're going to see it this year, but I can't imagine that Apple would be putting the kibosh on such a popular product.
Yeah. So we also understood there was big news coming with Mac Pro, and what can you tell us?
Well, Mac Pro, for the desktop users, you have the Mac Studio, which is a tiny little box that has a lot of power, and it starts at about $19.99. So it is not for the light of wallet such as myself. And if you really want it to be tricked out, we tricked it out. I think we got to 5,999. So it's a pricey machine, as would be expected from Apple if you really want all the powers. So that's like 8 terabytes of RAM, the highest CPU and GPU that you can get, 128 gigs of RAM. So that's for the really and for MacBook Pro and MacBook Air, we're expecting to see new versions of the 13-inch and for the Pro and the Air. And we're expecting to see the M2 chip, which would be the next step up in Apple's ARM-based M series chips, which have been really taking the tech world by storm with the power, the endurance. We saw we saw the arrival of the M1 Ultra, which is essentially two M1 Max chips soldered together. So it's like a mega chip and it's got mega power. But we've been hearing rumors for a while about an M2 chip. So I'm hoping those are true, because I really want to see what the power output is going to be like. I mean, the price point is going to be through the roof, of course, but that, like, if you want Apple, they do not come cheap.
Yeah, that's the story about Apple. If you're going to Apple, you got to know that you have to be prepared to dig into your pockets, your wallets, your purses, whatever. Let me switch gears for a quick second, because as we deal a lot with the Russia-Ukraine situation, we understand that America is on guard for cybersecurity and the possibility of cyber attacks. What can you tell us in terms of being best prepared for a time such as this, when we know that cyber attacks are a great potential?
Now is the time to really take a look at your VPNs and your password managers. If you do not have one, please, now is really the time to invest in them. They're pretty affordable. The password manager does exactly that. It manages your password. So instead of using password as your password, or 123456, password managers generate a password for everything that you log in, and you only have to worry about one master password to access everything else. That way, there's less chance of you being hacked or being cyber attacked. It's also good to turn on your two-factor verification. Get an authorization authenticator app to make sure, like, just add extra layers of security. And as far as antivirus, start checking out your antivirus. Currently, if you're a Kaspersky user, you might want to reconsider that. The U.S. has flagged that company because it is a Russian-owned company. So you maybe not. Maybe find an alternative right now. If you're really secure, if you're worried about foreign cyber attacks, we are keeping abreast of the situation, because it's not that Kaspersky isn't a good antivirus software. It is, but right now the U.S. is definitely eyeing them, because they are a Russian company, and there could be security issues there.
Yeah, a lot to pay attention to. Very quickly before we go, anticipated date for Apple to come back with their new releases. Are we talking September, October?
For the MacBooks, that tends to be a spring thing, so I'm thinking maybe April, and if not, then they might make us wait until WWDC, which is around June timeframe. But I can't imagine them letting it go that far. iPhones are and other mobile gear, that's typically towards September, October time. So I'm expecting at least 3 more Apple events.
All right. Well, we'll be looking forward to seeing what happens there. And when they do come out, God willing, we'll have you back, and we'll be able to discuss it even more. We'll probably have it before then anyway. So, Sherri Smith, thank you so much for being with us and sharing with us a little bit about what is going on in the world of Apple and also cybersecurity. Thanks much.
Thank you for having me.
All righty. Well, I want to let you know that if you want more information about Sherri and her group, you can also visit their website at laptopmag.com, and there you can find all the latest that you need to know in greater depth than anything that we've ever talked about right here. I want to let you know also we come to the end of our show today. I want to thank all of our guests for joining us, and most of all, you, the viewer, for tuning in. Now, if you missed any part of today's show, you can catch the Reba Cablecast on BronxNet Channel 67. If you have Verizon Fios, of course, that is Channel 2133, or anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. Also want to give a special shout out to our viewers who've been watching today on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, as Open is being broadcast live simultaneously on the MNN channel. We encourage you, stay connected to us. If you desire a brand new episode of Open, come back on Friday morning. My girl, Rena Valentine, will bring you the best of arts and entertainment. Until next week, I'm Daren Jaime saying take care, God bless, and most of all, keep this channel wide open.